Okay. Tell me when you're logged in, will you?
I just logged in. Is it just under the lecture one?
Yeah, exactly. Just on the balloon today. Our first failure is nice. Oh, yeah, we just got this. One, two, three. Okay, Michelle, still hear it? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, Michelle? Yeah, I can hear you there. All right, we'll give it a go. Imperfect, but manageable. We got a few minutes. We can talk. We'll wait for everyone to get here through the labyrinth of fences around the road.
It's like a maze out there.
It is, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to put technology without digital classes. We shall see. All right, let's do it. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. We made it, sort of. I'm John Grand, and I'm going to be your professor for WFC 120, Biology and Conservation of Fishes. I'm not the guy who normally teaches this class. My friend and colleague Andrew Ripple, who's the professor of cold water fishes at WFCB, normally teaches it. But we worked together for many years, and before that I worked with Peter Moyle, who was my graduate advisor. And so I have some limited qualifications to teach the class. I'm a research scientist myself at the Center for Watershed Sciences next door to Academic Surge. And I focus on estuarine and wetland ecology, particularly interested in restoration and how novel ecosystems work, and ecohydrology, food webs, as well as fish. And I do so with a whole gang of people. If you're interested in what our lab does, you can go to this link and check it out. We have various opportunities at Watershed for people looking for internships, for work, for interesting volunteer opportunities. So please go and explore the website and get in touch with me. And those are my two predecessors in this, whoops. Well, anyway. These are my two predecessors, Andrew Ripple and Peter Moyle on the right. So let me, this is going to be a little bit dry, but let me tell you what my expectations are. I'm going to tell you about the syllabus and whatnot. Let me go there now. If I can. Should work. Oh. Okay, so this is the syllabus. And just to let you know, the general format is going to be in person. I'll be here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday giving the class. But if the technology works, you should be able to stay at home and watch the class via streaming. And we're working on getting audio and video quality put together so that you'll be able to hear it effectively. It's been hard to access the classroom because it's been locked out because of COVID. But we're working on figuring it out. So you could actually, if you're not comfortable being in the class, or you get put in quarantine, or you just feel chronic, you can stay, or you just want to, you can stay at home and you should be able to stream the class. Likewise, I'm going to post the recordings so that you'll have access to the lectures whenever you need them. That said, here's my request to you. In exchange for the flexibility, be sure you watch the lecture every day when it's assigned before midnight, because there'll be participation points. I'm not going to take roll, but there'll be usually a participation exercise. It'll be very simple, very straightforward. You'll click on the link in Canvas and you'll fill out like a few sentences expressing your ideas about some topic or other, and you get 5 points for the day. So it's an easy way to get the scores and boost your points and survive in the class, and it lets me know that you're showing up, and it keeps you disciplined and on track, which I think is just a useful thing in academia in general. So that's my deal with you. You got to watch them sometime between 11 a.m. and midnight that night, okay, to get credit for it. I'll be having office hours once a week on Wednesdays between 1 and 3, starting today, over at the Contemplative Garden in the Arboretum. And I put the link here on the, oh, you're not showing up. Sorry about that. Let me get you back on here. You know when I'm screwing up like that, you just got to tell me. You know? Just shout out, hey, dude. You know? No? How about that? No. Total failure.
For Zoom, you're good.
Really?
On Zoom, it's showing it.
But not on the stream. I'm sorry, everyone. This sucks. The idea is to make it easier. Jesus. It's all worked seamlessly before. No. All right. If you have your computer, you can pull it up. If not, you're on your own. You'll have to check out the syllabus later on, okay? I'll get these cakes worked out. I don't want to waste a whole bunch of time. Wait, I'll just do this. Jesus Christ. Sorry, swear. Oh my God, there it is. Okay, I'll just start the lecture. All right, that tells you about the course format at the top of the syllabus. The way I've arranged this, by the way, I'm going to go into student view here. Did that show up? Yeah, it did. Okay, so I tried to make the Canvas site pretty simple. Everyone's different for every prof. But basically, you go to home and you hit the modules. The modules tell you what you need to do every single week. And then the syllabus here will give you the overview, which is what we're on now. And there's extra for files. And then if you're lost in the assignments, you can always go to the assignments and it'll show you what's due. And this includes, assignments include the readings, papers, participation credit, et cetera, et cetera. So, but syllabus is where we're at right now. And it's working. Okay, so that's the link to log on to the Zoom site. It'll work for it'll work for every single class, and the lectures will be uploaded to the Canvas site, so you'll be able to see a recorded version of it there. Okay, so John Duran, that's me. You can email me. You can track me down in my office hours 1 to 3 p.m. over at the Contemplative Garden in the Arboretum. It's a nice quiet place under a tree to talk. You'll be able to find me there from 1 to 3 starting today. And I'll try to stream those too, at least the audio of them. Okay, Rochelle Tallman over here in the corner. Take about Rochelle. Rochelle's going to be my TA. She's helping me with the technology and the assignments and the grading. And she's going to run office hours as well. Friday, 12 to noon outside of the mathematics building, right on those benches out there under the trees. And then we have 2 other TAs who will be working in the lab sections. Brian Williamson, who's on Zoom right now. Hey, Brian, how's it going, man? You cut your hair. Wow, you look even more Viking-like. Okay, so, and then we have Kim Luke, who's not here today. She's out in the field today. But we'll all be working together to try and make it a fun class for you. Grading. You can see the grading breakdown. Typically, the final is worth the biggest chunk, but quizzes and participation are worth quite a lot of the grades. So show up. I'll have little quizzes every couple of weeks. They won't be surprises. They'll be open books. You can discuss the answers, and they'll be short, just to keep you on task. The midterm and the final, same deal. I'll just take a minute right now. I described this farther below. Wait a second. There's going to be a fish paper, which you have to submit in the form of a scientific paper, 5-page paper. It's worth 15%. I'm going to ask you to work in groups of 3 or 4 to submit a blog, hopefully for publication on the Cal Water blog, and then a poem, which is a funny tradition at UC Davis, as we study art and poetry in this class too. So I'll get to that later. Reading, so there's no required textbook that you have to buy. The required textbook is like $175, and it ain't that great. So I stole a PDF, don't ask me where, hopefully there are no spies for the publication industry here. There might be, they come out once in a while. I just got an email last night. I published a paper that I wrote on ResearchGate, and they said, you can't do that, we own it. I was like, yeah. Anyway, it's silliness. You know, there's a Russian website that, and it's Russia, so it's totally renegade, and everyone can, like, you can basically, they just steal PDF publications in science all around the world, and they don't care because it's Russia. So you can ask me privately where to find it if you need it ever, but UC is pretty broadly connected. So Helfman et al. Is our main textbook. I'll be choosing choice readings from that. It's kind of a beast, but I'll try to pare it down for you. I'll use other readings from the Moyle and Czech book, which was written here by Peter and Joe Czech, professors here. And I'll give those to you as PDFs on the Canvas side of the modules, so you'll be able to see them. If you can get through them before you come to class, it'll make the lectures a lot easier. Just so you know, like, don't read a textbook. Like, I don't know how aware of this you are yet, but I'll just, give me a second. Look at the pictures. Go to the figures first. You know, look at the chapter headings. Look at the pictures. There's pretty ones and there's figures. Figure out the figures. If they don't make sense to you, find where in the text it explains it and dig in there. If you feel like you need more information, read the first and last sentences of every paragraph and see if it makes sense. And if it's fine, keep moving. If it doesn't, go read the inside. It's a little more of an active reading exercise, but it spares you the exhaustion, emotional and physical, of having to grind through horribly written prose by somebody who needed to, like, pad their income. You know, nobody makes money on these things, but the point is, be engaged. If you're going to read something, read it actively. Go to the figures. It's the best way into the text. And if you don't understand something, then you read that. And the rest of it, you cruise on. Don't worry about it. If you happen to have a real interest in, also I should say there's some supporting material for the textbook for Helfman, which is open access at Blackwell Publishing, right here. So that's high technology too. It's supposedly a gyroscopic pointer. It doesn't work either. Okay, so here, this link here, Blackwell Publishing, gives you some background on taxonomy and stuff, which might be useful for you. If you're really interested in California freshwater fishes, I also enclosed a PDF that Peter Moyle wrote on fishes, inland fishes of California, which is a really beautiful book. That's actually worth getting a hard copy of your little Fishophile. Otherwise, you can just check out the PDF. All right. Assignments, participation, scoring quizzes. I think I talked about the Puta Creek field trip. So the field trip is mandatory if you're in the lab. You got to chalk off October 30th, which is a Saturday. If you're in the lecture, you don't have to go, but I'll give you participation credit if you do show up, and you should show up. It's really fun. You know, you don't have to show up for 4 or 5 hours, but come and spend an hour and look at the fishes in the creek. It's down by the UC Preserve. I'll give you directions later to get there. You can bike there, you can park, you can drive a car and park. And it's a great opportunity to get, like, wet and muddy and seine for fish, or backpack electrofish if you're into it, or go out on a boat and pick up traps. And I think we put out some fight nets out there, not fikes, excuse me. I think we usually use, like, we do beach seines, and we do some, maybe even put some gill nets or trammel nets out there, but it's really a blast. So I really want you to come. So just make it a priority. Day before Halloween, you won't be too wasted from the parties at that point. So you should come. We normally have 2 field trips. One's to Bodega. We're not going to do that this year. the logistics of getting on a bus and getting out there, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna try and set up some self-guided field trips, I don't promise, to go up to a hatchery and see the salmon swimming up to the hatchery to be spawned. And then maybe another one, the aquarium of the bay, where you can just kind of do a self-guided thing. I apologize, this is too much logistical madness. The fish paper. So this is gonna be like a 5-page scientific paper on a species of your choice. And I'll show you the list later on. It's not gonna assign it for a couple of weeks. Probably maybe the 3rd week, I give the assignment, I'll open it up. Be thinking of a fish that you want to write a sort of monograph on, is what it is, a scientific monograph. And I'll get into the guts of this more, but we expect that you'll treat it like a scientific paper, that you go and do research. Ruth Gustafson from the library, who's our aquatic biology specialist, is going to come and talk to us about research modalities and opportunities that exist at the UC Davis Library, and we take it pretty seriously. So I hope that you do too. It's just 5 pages. It's not super heavy conceptually. It's a chunkier grade, and it's good practice for writing. It really is. So that's why we do them. I'll get more into that later. I want to kind of get into some fish at some point today. The second written assignment is going to be a team project. You might as well make the team your study group. I recommend that, like this week, you get together with a group of 3 or 4 people who you like or can tolerate or you think are smart, one of the above, and get together a study group. It makes it much more efficient when you're studying. You can ask each other questions, you can set each other tasks to research the work, and you can use the same group to write a blog. Now, my goal is that you produce high quality blogs that I can publish to the California Water Blog, which is sponsored by the Center of Watershed Sciences and is edited by Andrew and by Jay Lund, who are the 2 directors of the center. And so you could make yourself famous for a minute, and you'd have a written piece that you could put on your CV for when you launch off into the world. And that's always a good thing. And we'll talk more about that. That's the latter half of the quarter. We'll talk more about that when it comes up. And then fish poetry. You gotta do one. You know, it's 2% of your grade. I'll get more into why we do poetry in another lecture, but suffice it to say that you get to write a poem on a fish and submit it for grade in a science class at UC Davis. That's what passes for a liberal arts education at UC Davis. It's like, you don't have to take a lot of philosophy or sociology or history, but you got to write a fish poem. So that's just a long-standing tradition. There's been, sometimes it's leaned towards just doing haikus, which is, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables for a total of 17 syllables. But I've opened it up. You could do Elizabethan sonnets. You could do spoken word. You could hip hop. You could do whatever. I should tell you that your poems will be judged by an expert panel of us, Michelle, Brian, and Kim and I. Maybe we'll loop in Peter. I don't know. Yes.
Do we have to read them aloud?
Well, maybe if you do a really good one, because the winners, because there's good art, high art, and low art, and bad art. But yeah, we're going to pick the worst ones for you to perform. The best and the worst are going to be no. So we're going to pick some choice poems, because good is not always best. Sometimes funny is best. And we'll ask those people to perform. You don't have to. And the winner of that performance will receive a special high value. I'm serious about a high value award that has something to do with fish. So we'll talk more about it. But that's due before December 2nd, before December 1st, excuse me. And I'll talk a little bit more about poems, and I'll lay some poems on you. You've all read Elizabeth Barrett Brown's The Fish. That's kind of a poem I hate, but there's some good ones too that I'll love you with. Yes?
Can that be expanded into drawing or drawing?
You want to do drawing instead of a poem?
Yeah.
But can you perform it?
Of course.
That's the right answer, yes. Okay, so it's just fun. Midterm and final. Here's my deal. The midterm is going to be a take-home midterm. Okay, I'll assign it on November 1st, and you'll have until midnight to submit it. Once you start it, you got to finish it. You can't go back and redo your answers. And the answers will be, the questions will be randomized. So everyone's kind of going to get a slightly different midterm. That said, it's only going to be a 50-minute test, you know. If you need more time, you know, 2 hours at the most, you know. But, you know, I'm shooting for about an hour, less than an hour. Same thing with the final. The final will be 2 hours. And if you need extra time, well, you can take it because you'll have between, but for the midterm, you'll have between 11 a.m., well, after class, 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. to submit it. The final's going to start at 3:30 p.m. and it'll close at midnight as well. If you want to take the final in this room during those hours, you can. It'll be here, it'll be open, I'll be here too. But here's the thing about these, they're open book. You can talk them over with your study group or your friend or your housemate. You can discuss the answers. You know, the idea is that you learn something, not that you prove it, you know? The idea is you have to think. I think that's the most valuable thing you get out of class. You get a chance to think once in a while. But here's the caveat. If you don't study before you take it, you're going to spend so many more hours taking the goddamn exam. If you rely on other people to you know, help you research the answers and stuff, you're going to be frustrated because people are going to be getting different answers at different times as they take the test, because the order of the answers will be randomized. And even some of the order of the questions will be randomized. And even some of the questions will be different. So that provides an incentive for you to study and master the material, which in some cases is complicated, but I think in most cases is hopefully straightforward. But at the same time, it allows you to use resources and demonstrate you can do your job as a student. Okay? Any questions about that? Yes.
What's the format of the exam?
It'll be some multiple choice, some true false, some fill in the answer, and some short answer as well. So I wouldn't say essay questions, but you know, short answer, we have to write a paragraph and explain your idea and support it. We'll have some of those as well. Yes.
Is the test on Canvas formatted where you will give us one question at a time? Or
Yes. It'll be one question at a time, and then you submit it, and then you can't go back. It's kind of sucks. I know, but that's just the way it is. That's the trade-off, okay? Any other questions, objections? Okay, it's a deal. Hey, let's see. I think that's pretty much it for the organization of the class. I just want to say, last thing, I've been encouraged to include this, and I'm happy to include it. Student resources down here. If you're freaking out about coming back to school, or if you're just freaking out in general, you're not alone. There's a lot of people, a lot of anxiety. I went downtown to Davis. I live here. I went downtown Davis to get a haircut to look nice for the class. And I was like, you know, it's been so sleepy for like the past year and a half. I was like, who are all these human beings? You know, so I have to say I was a little stressed out. So there's resources on campus that you can reach out to. And this link here that I put up here, will take you to them. There's pretty good psychological services if you need to talk to a counselor. There's a crisis hotline. There's anonymous, you know, ways to reach out and not reveal your identity. And there's ways to do it in person. There's resources for you to figure out study plans. And if you're falling behind in your homework and you can't get organized, well, that's what the UC Davis is about. It's getting, you know, people who don't have top study skills in a lot of cases, a lot of working class families, first generation college students, getting you to like get the skills you need. So it's not like a marathon. It's not like a steeplechase. It's like we're supposed to be building you up. So take advantage of these resources. And I want to add myself to that as well. If you're freaking out, you need to talk to somebody, just call me up. Well, maybe you can't call me, but you can email me and you can come to office hours and we can meet, you know? And, you know, my wife and I are really big on mental health issues in general. She runs suicide prevention here in town, and she's worked for NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we're just involved in the mental health community in general. And so we just want to make sure that you're having a good time and that, you know, and that you're not feeling overwhelmed. So enough said, there are resources here. Don't suffer in silence alone, okay? All right. Our schedule. I'm gonna let you read that. Basically, the class is divided up into like 3 parts, more or less. It's gonna be like an introduction and a discussion about the diversity of fishes and a little bit about why conservation is important. We'll talk about the morphology and function, the structure of fishes in general, so we know what we're talking about when we get into the 3rd part, which will be sort of a taxonomic review of the diversity of fishes. And then finally, we'll end up talking about conservation for like the last third of the course. So that's the basic structure. Attached to the bottom of the syllabus is the spreadsheet that you will live and die by for the first part of the quarter. So naming things has a power to it. It's tedious and it's memorization, and that's not in vogue in education. But just like a Shakespearean actor memorizes their lines and finds new connections as they do that to the play, I'm going to ask you to memorize the the course taxonomic structure of the fishes. And in this class, in the lecture, you just have to take it down to superorder or order. And I've included all of these on this spreadsheet here. There's levels of sort of, it's a little fractal. So you can drill down in precision, and on Canvas, on the assignments for the first week, you can see the taxonomy spreadsheet. And so I have this broken down to order, and then I have an additional layer of complexity on another tab, which is down to family, and then another one which is down to species. And that kind of gives you this really broad overview. In the lecture, you just got to take it down to order and know some examples of fishes that belong to that order. In the lab, you'll be doing it down to family, and you'll need to know specific species, and you'll get a chance to observe and draw and think about those species in that class. Okay, that's it. That's that. Any questions so far? No questions? All right. I'm not going to start lecturing. If I can get through that. All right. Let me pull up my lecture. All right. You can see it. Let me share it. Sorry. All right, I think that worked. Does it work, Michelle?
Yeah, that's good, John.
Oh no. Okay. So I talked about the 4 different sections of the course: diversity, structure, function, emphasizing writing. I talked about that. Critical thinking, yeah. Critical thinking is great. Sorry. All right. Taxonomy of the classroom first. Here, the idea of this is to get you thinking about, what you're doing in here, and it's to get you to learn, not to necessarily regurgitate, which is why everything's open book. Remembering, I would simplify this down to 4 categories. It was me, but it's Bloom. Remembering, the memorization thing really does form a foundation of sorts, and so it is important for what it is. And then understanding and being able to relate these things and apply them and analyze them into novel situations. And that's why we have you, 1, write the paper because it helps you understand, and 2, write the blog because it helps you take multiple competing ideas and process them and then put them out into create something essentially evaluate the positions and create something that's new, that could be published, that could be shared with other people. The one, I would say, weakness we're going to have this class is quantitative stuff. I would love for us to have a quantitative element where you actually work with some data, but the large format just makes it really challenging. And not surprisingly, fisheries employers, if you're looking for a job when you get out of here, are kind of looking for the same thing. Interestingly enough, math and statistics is kind of halfway down. So flies in the face of what I just said, but critical thinking, communication, writing are really important skills. That's why we're emphasizing this stuff in WFC, the department, as well as the classroom. And this is your class. Take advantage of it, use it as you will, engage in discussions, use your step group, and hopefully develop some skills that you can take out of here and do some cool stuff with, conservation or fish or wherever you want to go next. So let's talk about fishes. Let's talk about what a fish is. Yes.
Real fast, so on the Zoom, it's fine, it's just showing your presenter versus just the PowerPoint.
Oh, how weird.
Brian was saying you might have to screen share for the second screen, like the one that's being projected.
Yeah. Thank you. How does that look?
Yep.
Yeah, did that fix it?
Yep.
I'm sorry, everyone. We'll figure it out. Okay, thanks, Brian. So what is a fish? The truth is that fishes include the most broad array of vertebrate diversity. But they don't really have a shared common ancestor. They're non-monophyletic, we say. They're not all derived from the same common ancestor. And so it's kind of tough to find characteristics that, shared characteristics that tell you what a fish is, because things like this, usually fish live in water, but there are fishes who do pretty well outside of water, at least for short periods of time, like Peruvian clingfish or walking catfish or lungfish even, that don't even have gills or very reduced gills that don't allow them to breathe outside of water. They have to breathe water, although they do live in water. And again, usually they use gills, but lungfish don't have gills. They have a set of lungs, and they're ancestral to your lungs. Usually fish don't thermoregulate, but actually a lot of fish can control their temperature, particularly tuna and albacore, through sophisticated structures of thermoregulation. Fishes aren't always scaly, like eels and catfish and many others, of sturgeon lack scales. And swim bladders, so that swim bladders are a structure that allow fish to regulate their position in the water column, but sharks and rays, which are fishy, but not really fishes, don't have them. So, okay, how about jaws? Everyone should have jaws and backbones because we're vertebrates, right? But lampreys don't have jaws, and hagfish, which are like the weirdest, freakiest fish of all. You've seen the pictures of like the car smashed on the road, copious quantities of slime, those are hagfish. They don't have jaws and they really don't have backbones either. They've got kind of like very, very primitive cartilaginous structures. And that's not really defining a fish anyway, because everyone's got those, right, if you're a vertebrate. So, my statement here is there are no fish. You're in a fish class and there are no fish. It's not a taxonomic unit. But there are about 35 to 40,000 different fish-like things on Earth. And they're represented by about 7 different taxonomic classes. And those are the 7 taxonomic classes that I want you to be aware of and understand the relationships among. So this is another way to visualize those relationships. And let me go back there for just a second. So, so on this taxonomy here, let me just go up here. So the Myxini are the hagfish, which are like the most ancestral of the fish-like creatures. They're the ones who have a cranium, a skull, but they don't have jaws, and or a backbone. And then we get into the vertebrata, which are descendants of those really ancestral fishes. And we have the Petromyzontidae, which are the lamprey, which have a vertebrate but they lack jaws. And then we come into the gnathostomes. And the gnathostomes is basically the jawed fishes. And the gnathostomes are ancestral to both the chondrichthyes, which form the elasmobranchs, which are sharks, and the holocephali, which are these weird shark-like things that live on the bottom of the ocean. It's called ratfish, which you'll see later. Chondrichthyes, they have cartilaginous skeletons. And then the other main group of gnathostomes, which includes us as tetrapods, is the osteichthyes, the bony fishes. We're descendants of the Sarcopterygiae, which includes like coelacanths, have you heard of those? And then us. And then the Actinopterygiae form a lot of fish-like things that you really tend to call fish. You know, we tend to call sharks sharks, even though they fall under fish. But the Actinopterygiae are the ray-finned fishes. And they include a number of important groups that we'll discuss, including the Acanthopterygiae, which are kind of like the Cadillac model. The ultimate or the most derived, I shouldn't say the most advanced, but because everything's really successful that's on this list because they're still alive, right? So, but they have extreme adaptations. They're the most derived is the Acanthopterygiae, which we'll get to. Another way to think about all this diversity is with this chart that I put in the syllabus, right? And this allows you to kind of visualize the same groups, but in a different way. And we'll want you to know this, you know, down to superorder or order. Don't pay too much attention to the headings because they're a little bit deceiving. And it turns out that this taxonomy, so the taxonomy is accurate according to Nelson, but it's also been modified a little bit to make it pedagogically sound, just so you can wrap your freaking head around it because it's so complicated. And so it turns out that this taxonomy doesn't fit very well once you include all the rest of the vertebrates, because we had to keep adding classes and orders and suborders and families and hyperfamilies and subfamilies and grades. So it's just a way of thinking about it. It's a tool for you to figure out the relationships, but don't get too hung out on like superclass, class, superorder, and all that kind of stuff. Basically understanding these relationships are more important. And thinking about it less as like as a phonetically correct structure, but rather sort of nested groups that diverge from each other. Because the taxonomy of this is really rugged and it changes all the time. So don't get too hung up on that. Just try to understand the basic relationships. These groups that we're going to be talking about today form a major source of vertebrate diversity. In fact, you know, really the tetrapods, us and everyone else, the other vertebrates that you spend your career studying in WFCB, they're really just kind of offshoot of fish. They're like a small subgroup with a little bit of diversity that, you know, a lot of people are obsessed in because we all have a vertebral bias, you know, or a terrestrial vertebral bias, I should say, because we all mostly have vertebrae except for the poor hagfish. But a lot of this diversity that's packed into fish is really cryptic, and it's cryptic on 2 or 3 levels. A lot of species that are different, that are really have evolved on separate pathways, have converged structurally, so they look alike. And so it's very difficult to tell that they actually have a lot of genetic diversity baked into these similar forms. And other species have diverged genetically, so there are species that look alike that have the same roots, but they've diverged genetically because they've been isolated in different watersheds or different regions, but they still look the same. And so again, that diversity is really hard to track down. And then the third level of diversity is just that a lot of it is hidden because we spend our time walking around on the land. And if you're a fisher or you dive, you might have a stronger sense of the diversity that is fishes, but otherwise you could miss a lot of it. And so people tend not to care about it. And as a result, fishes are generally pretty imperiled. And so I want you to just take a minute here to name that fish. Give me a name of a fish, if you would, and I'll see if I can make this work with my funky system here. If you go to HTTPS or use your phone to zoom in on that grid up here, it should take you to the website. Or you can type in www.menti.com XMPDV8OD6E and just name a fish that you know. Just for fun. You can name more than one if you want. While you're doing that. Oh, cool. Cool. Nothing happens. Jesus Christ. It's so stupid. Other than that totally sucks. Okay. It's terrible. I spent a whole bunch of time trying to figure this out so that you guys could have the pleasure of seeing it. Now it doesn't work. I guess you'll have to go on recording and find it out. Sign. All right. And I even closed the sharing. It doesn't even show. All right, well.
John, is there a way to drag that that screen onto your second display?
Let me try. It's I think it's like the line, the connection between the two lines. Like it's not. I'll never do this again, people. All right. All right. Oh, I'm really sorry, you guys, but you're just gonna have to bear with me. Did it work? All right.
But it's not on.
Yeah, I know. All right, now you can see it at least. Put so much work into it. Like you waste your time doing, indulging myself here. So. All right, so hey, let's check out what we have here. Actually, you guys did pretty good. We got betas, Asian carp, sunfish. That's a lot of fishes. Golden trout, tilapia, zebrafish. I see some aquarium fish in there. I see a lot of California native fishes. A lot of fishing fishes, largemouth bass. Somebody's a fisherman. Sunfish. Sunfish is like 5 or 6 different fishes. Salmon. Salmon's like 6 different fishes. Rainbow trout's a fish. Clownfish is a whole bunch of different fishes. Rockfish. Rockfish is like 20 different species. Angelfish, freshwater, saltwater, flying fish. Hey, this is not bad. Suckerfish, Arapaima. Oh, that's impressive. Hey, well, you all did pretty well. It's funny, I don't see too many sharky kind of things. Cookie cutter shark. Sarcastic fringe head? Who put that in? Who put in the sarcastic fringe head? Maybe that was me.
That was me.
Sick great fish. Oh, there's Protosphaera perniciosa. Somebody's showing off. That's a triggerfish. Brian first with that one. What did you put that?
I did not put that one in, but I knew that.
Hey, this isn't sturgeon. That's pretty good, you guys. I expected it to be like a bunch of fish that people had for dinner last night or something like that. So, you're a pretty well-educated group. Let me try and figure out how to share my screen again. So that was worth it, maybe. Okay, so all right, and we're back in. All right. Thanks for indulging. All right. So that's one way to kind of get like a on the fly there. We've got about 5 minutes here. So of course I'm late. I'm behind in my lecture here, but since we only have 5 minutes, I'm gonna push off my overflight through the diversity of fishes, and I want to leave you with kind of a note about diversity and conservation here. So we'll come back to this on Friday, and I'll give you that overflight of fish diversity. In the meantime, I want to talk about diversity and conservation, which I alluded to. So this will make more sense after I have gone through what we talked about, but evolutionary trends, evolution has made increasingly diversified, increasingly specialized fishes, as we'll find out on Friday. Many of these are currently endangered, as I said before, without our even having recognized them. In cases, we don't even know the species exist. And here I was assuming that a lot of the results would be from your dinner, and how insulting. You guys are hipper than that. So you actually had, but I would say from the average population, most people were like, yeah, I saw a nugget. It was a rainbow trout. And to that end, like extinction rates for North American freshwater fauna are much higher than for terrestrial species. And they're much more vulnerable. So, we see the pandas and we see other species that, are charismatic megafauna. The fish are just kind of silent, and there are many, many species that are very imperiled as of right now. And part of this is a function of increasing global population. 9.2 billion people projected in 2050, and in California, the population is like gone, like it's like, I was born in 1961, and the population is like troubled, like 3 times the number of people live here. And I've seen the changes with my own eyes. I mean, there's a lot of people here. But I think this is also distorting somewhat the real roots of some of the issue, because it's not just about population, it's about consumption. It's about people building McMansions, middle-class people building McMansions as status symbols, and the resources required to build them, and the land required to build them, and all the water required to fill the swimming pools, because you got to have a swimming pool, and cars on the road, which release all kinds of dirty stuff, not just fossil fuels, but just dirty stuff that goes into watersheds that impacts fishes. The latest is a toxin that was recently discovered that degrades off of tires. So the dust from the tires goes into urban watersheds and kills coho. Thank you. Yeah, coho salmon. So California's trying to regulate that right now, alone, state of California, not much in Washington state. So it's it's the amount of resources that we're consuming, and frankly, as Americans, we do not, we are the heart of consumption here in this country, and that's has a huge impact, especially on aquatic species. And so the status, just looking at California, and this is done by Peter Moyle and some of his lab people who are friends of mine, 5% extinct as of right now on this pie chart, although we're just on the cusp of adding a couple more, including the Delta smelt, which is almost gone, if not gone, maybe tomorrow by lunch. Over 25% are endangered, another 25, more than 25 are vulnerable, near threatened. It's like 3/4 of California fishes. This is not an exaggeration. I mean, the diversity that are California fishes is rapidly disappearing. And things like the last drought had a huge impact. And this drought is even worse, which is our issues that we'll get into. Just as an example of this, is the bull trout. Bull trout went extinct on our watch. The last one was caught by one of Peter's graduate students. He tagged it, released it, and it probably just swam downstream and died of sorrow. That was it, 1975. That was it. And if you look at this plot here, so, you know, since 1975, the number of vulnerable species has gone up. You see that extinction is kind of flatlined, but vulnerable and endangered is going up, and stable is going down. That extinction curve, that's an extinction debt. It's going to go up in the next 20 years. We're going to see that. Winter run Chinook salmon, they're almost gone. I don't have time to talk about it. Sacramento perch are really vulnerable because they have such a limited distribution. They don't live in the wild anymore. They live in stock ponds, golf clubs, on campus, and secret ponds that I can't tell you about. Tule perch are actually doing pretty well, but they have such a limited distribution. They're really vulnerable. So for your participation credit and then release, you can do this now or you can do it at home before midnight. Go on and log on to the website, and under participation credit lecture 1, you'll see a place where you can like just put in a couple of sentences telling me why we care, why you care. Actually, not we, just you. Is it important? We spent many, many millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on Delta Smelt, and they're going extinct, like I said, tomorrow at lunch. Tell me why it's important or if it's not. I'm curious, and I'll give you 5 points. Thank you for indulging me in my technological disasters.